Hey, before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick second to tell you, be sure to watch this video all the way to the end. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on a huge payoff after a ton of work. So with that out of the way, why don't we head out to the garage and get started? Let's go!
Overtime!
All right, it is a beautiful Labor Day Monday out here in Virginia, and I'm out in the garage, going to spend the day working on games before it gets too hot. And I think what we're going to do is get back to the qberts that I've got. So I've been talking to Overtime Arcade channel members about the projects that they want me to prioritize and the videos that they want me to release. And one of the things that they've been asking for is qbert. So we're back on the qbert. And if you remember, I actually picked up two project qbert cabinets. And I was trying to decide exactly what to do with them. And I think my current plan is to, they're in various states of disrepair. One was, mostly complete minus the PCB, and one was, almost an empty shell, but that one's in much better condition. That's the one here on the right. So I think what I'm going to do is, strip all of the hardware, like the vent grill up here on top and all the other things that I need, the back door, etc., and move them over to the cabinet on the right. Because like I said, that one's in much better shape. The one on the left has all kinds of water damage and that sort of thing. So I think between the two of them, I'll have one really good qbert to restore. And eventually, maybe with the other one, I'll slowly, get the stuff that I need to maybe convert this to like a J-Rock Mad Planets. Because Mad Planets is a great game, and it did use the exact same cabinet as qbert. So I think that's what my game plan is going to be for now. And so for qbert, I've been slowly getting parts that I need to restore this thing. And I think I'm nearly there, certainly to the point where we can continue working on the project. And so if we come over here, I've got the transformer assembly out. That's the power harness that I pulled out of one of the two cabinets. I can't remember which one. And then this is a cabinet harness, or a wiring harness, that I finally was able to track down. Everything related to qbert has just gone up so much in price recently. I've seen these harnesses go for over $300 on eBay, and I didn't pay nearly that much. There is someone on Claw that makes reproduction harnesses, and I hear that he does a great job, but that's also very expensive, especially because a lot of these connectors are just sort of, I guess, discontinued. But I was able to find this one, which is in good shape, on eBay for a much better price. And yeah, one of the things I did was I printed out the schematic, and I went through and I made sure I had everything that I needed. All the parts of the harness, everything. And I was going through, sort of piece by piece and making sure everything was there and making sure it was all in good shape. And I got really confused because things just weren't matching up, right? And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Is this not a qbert harness? But eventually I realized there's actually two different versions of this schematic. And this is the, I guess, original one that didn't have a filter board, but my setup does have a filter board. So this is the other version of the schematic, like it says down here, power, filter board, interconnection, etc. And this does match up because my the harness that I got expects a filter board, and I do have a filter board in the PCB set that I pieced together. So this was the diagram that I needed to do. And so you can see I went through here piece by piece by piece. The green is everything that comes from the main wiring harness, and the pink and the yellow are the parts from the power harness I took out of the cabinet. And everything is here and good to go. The only thing that I'm really missing is the monitor video signal wiring. I can build another one of those. I can make one of those, so that's no problem at all. Obviously, I'm going to have to rewire the control panel, but that's really not that bad. And I'm missing the knocker assembly completely, because when qbert or coily falls off the edge of the play field, it hits a pinball knocker to make a physical sound inside of the cabinet. So we'll need to rebuild all of that. But for the most part, everything looks to be in really, really good shape. So I grabbed the, I think this is the transformer assembly from the cabinet that I am using, even though the serial number here has kind of been rubbed off. You know, and it's a bit rusty and nasty, but I cleaned it up a little bit, tested all the fuses, made sure that they were the right value. We got fuse 1 over here, fuse 2 over here, fuse 3 over here, and then 4 and 5. I think I did have to replace a couple of them because they were, you know, not the correct value. But I think we are good to go. I also did replace the power plug just because I didn't like how the old one looked. The wire, the power cord is fine, but I did put a new grounded plug on the end. So I think we're ready to test the voltages that are coming off the transformer. I also printed off a couple more pages, you know, from the manual with all of the fuses. There's, you know, there's 5 here on the yeah, there's 5 on the transformer assembly here. The knocker itself gets another fuse in the cabinet, and then there's 5 on the power supply. So I guess that's a total of 11 fuses in this cabinet. It also gives you a sort of a color key on how to match up the sort of wire colors with the schematic. It uses this numbering system. And the wiring on the qbert harness, all of these are sort of a base white color, but have 1 or 2 stripes on them. I think there might be some that are some solid colors, but often you're looking at 3 different numbers to know what wire you've got. So I think we're good there. We set up the tripod. We'll go through and make sure we've got all the voltages that we expect to see coming off of the transformer assembly, and then that'll go to the power supply board, which will produce the voltages that we need for everything running in the game. And I am going to use the simplified schematic that doesn't have the filter board built into it, just because the voltages are the same. And this scan is a much higher quality one. You know, this is sort of really kind of fuzzy and hard to see. This is a much higher resolution, so we'll be able to do that pretty good. So yeah, I've got everything hooked up. So I've got the power connector for the harness that plugs into the transformer assembly plugged in. You can see over here, we've got the main power switches right here out of the cabinet. We've got 2 interlock switches. This is the connector for the monitor power. This goes to the marquee light. This is sort of where the, and this is, I guess, how it was originally maybe. I don't think there was any kind of distribution block or anything that sort of connected these, or at least this is how I found it in the cabinet. We've got the ground coming out of the power cord and the one that goes to the power switch. There are sort of yellow grounding straps all throughout the cabinet, and rather than rip those out, because I only need sort of a little run of them, I've got an alligator clip that's just connecting them to the transformer assembly, which is how it should be in the cabinet. And then over here, we've got these 2, I guess, Molex connectors, both of which go to the power supply PCB. So we should, in theory, be able to test and make sure that we've got all the voltages that we need. So let me grab my multimeter. Put that right here. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. Some of these are going to be AC voltages. Some of them are going to be, oh, the light doesn't even show up. It's so bright in here. Some of these are going to be AC voltages. Some of them are going to be DC. Maybe we can start with the AC voltages. I'll take the alligator clips off of the leads. Oh, obviously, I need to plug in the cabinet. So I'm going to hook it up actually to my AV cart just because it has a much longer power cord. We'll run that over here. Okay, the transformer assembly is plugged in, and in theory, we should already have voltage coming out of the service panel, or the service outlet. And yeah, we're at about 115, call it 115 right there, which is good. So I'm going to mark that down as 115. That's good. I'll come over here, and we'll go to the, let's see, you're not going to be able to really see that. I'm not sure what state this the main power switch is in, because it goes, you know, up and down, sort of toggling. So I'm going to put my leads into the, I know the interlock switches are off, so we're going to have no voltage right now. But I'll pull the two interlocks. That's the first one, and that's the second one. So I guess the main power switch was off, so I can turn this on. And we've got, we'll call that 120, going to the monitor. That's good. And we will test the, just for fun, the marquee light, which is also 120. So we'll mark that as good. Okay. Let's turn off the power. Disconnect these and come over here. So we're good on this side. We do have a few more, quite a few more AC voltages to check, and so that comes over here. So that's good. So coming back around over here, we'll want to do the rest off of these Molex connectors here. Let's see. Why don't we start again with our AC voltages? This is A12J1, which is this connector. And 1 and 3 should be 35 volts of AC. I do have one of the interlock switches off. So let's turn that on and see what happens. 36.6, which I think should be okay. All right, because I believe these are unregulated voltages, right? And once they go to these are input voltages that are provided to the power supply PCB. And it will turn them into the correct sort of regulated voltages that the rest of the cabinet needs. So we'll turn off the cabinet real quick. And next we want, I think, 5 and 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down here. This, I believe, should be 15 volts. And we've got 15.2. On 5. Okay, turn it off, and we'll move this over to 6 and 10, because this is a center tap. So this should also be 15, and yep, just shy of 15.2. Okay, turning off again. And then if I move them onto 5 and 6, this should be about 30. Because this is a center tap AC line here. And hopefully you can see, yeah. And that's, yeah, 30.3, which is great. So all that is good. And let's see, that's a DC and that's a DC. So let's turn off. Let's move to DC volts. And okay, I guess it's hotter out here than I thought. Because my phone shut off because it said the temperature was too high, but you really didn't miss anything. I put some ice cubes on it, so hopefully we're back in action. Like I said, I did set it to DC volts, and I put it over on positions 8 and 12 on A12J1, and we're getting 6.6 volts, which, and I think this goes to the coin door lights. That's a little high. It should be 4.5. So maybe we'll put a question mark on this bridge rectifier, because that's supposed to be taking 6.3 volts of AC and rectifying it to 4.5 volts of DC. But, you know, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. That shouldn't burn out the coin door lights, but if there's an issue, we'll know to take a look at this bridge rectifier and see what's going on. There's also no load. There's also no load on this right now, so it could be a little bit high. So I'm not really going to worry about that. So that's good. And the last one we need to check is on J5. We want to check 2 and 3. So I'll turn it off again. We've got J5 over here. 2 and 3 should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these two should be 2 and 3. All right. And when we turn it on, we should be getting, oh, I've got them in backwards. We should be getting positive 11.5, and we are getting a negative value. So flip these around here, and we've got 12.8, which again, it's an unregulated voltage, so that should be fine. And I think if we switch to AC here, we should have essentially nothing. And I believe if this, and I'm learning, this is my first Gottlieb, if this big blue capacitor on the transformer assembly works like the big blue on the Atari transformer assemblies, you know, the fact that we've got 0 volts of AC tells us that we're not getting any AC ripple, which is good. So I think we're in good shape to go ahead and connect this to at least the power supply PCB and see if we get the correct output voltages from the power supply. And if I take you over here, we'll see what's going on with the power supplies. I've actually got 2 of them, and they look identical, but they're not. So I got these, I think, from Quarter Arcade for a great price. So thank you, Quarter Arcade. Sells a lot of used arcade parts, and you know, visually these look very, very similar right off the bat. Obviously, this is missing the 2 big. This one on the right is missing the 2 big capacitors. This has one of them, but it's missing this one over here. And this is actually the stumbling block. I should have had this video out a week or 2 ago, but I forgot to buy the parts for this power supply PCB that I thought I had bought already months ago, but I guess not. So here's what we've got here. And again, these look identical, but they're not. If we zoom in really, really close, we can see the serial number here, or the model number here says GV103A. And that is for qbert. That's the model number that Gottlieb assigned to qbert. And if we come over here, we've got GV102, because this is actually for Mad Planets. And again, these look identical. They both say MA430 stamped right there, MA430 stamped right there, copyright 1982 Gottlieb. But there are a few differences. Right off the bat, I noticed that a couple of these resistors are burnt up, and over here some of them are these bigger ceramic ones. So like here and here there's no ceramics, but here we've got 2. Up here on the left one for qbert we've only got 1, versus we've got 2 ceramics over here. Neither of these has been capped. Also, looking inside the fuses for the Mad Planets one, are those resistors inside of the fuses? I don't think I've ever seen that before. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and I'll focus on this one, which is for qbert. I'll completely rebuild this. I've got a kit from PeterArcadePartsRepair.com. I've also got a new connector for this. This is just sort of a bizarre design choice that Gottlieb made. This should really be on the end of a wiring harness section, but it's soldered directly, this receptacle, onto the board. So we'll do all that. We'll check and replace all of the 5 fuses here, and we'll just do the whole kit. I thought about, you know, just sort of, you know, only doing the parts that, you know, looked bad, maybe pulled some of them and test them, but, you know, I'm just going to do the whole thing. There's too many things here that look burnt up. We can see this this resistor and this diode section look like they've had some heat, and I think those have been replaced in the past, but I'm just going to go through and replace everything in the kit. I'll show you what the kit looks like. So yeah, here's the kit that I got from Peter. This is for the Gottlieb MA303 and MA430, and these are both 430s. Mega Deluxe rebuild and cap kit. So I'll recap everything. We'll replace all of the headers just to make sure we've got good connections. There's transistors in here, and yeah, I think there's diodes in here, some resistors. I think there's diodes in here. Anyway, I'm going to install everything in this rebuild kit. We'll just shotgun the whole thing, and then we'll be ready to plug it into the wiring harness and test the output voltages that are coming off of this power supply. So I am going to do that work off camera. I've also got a new connector right there. So I'm going to do that off camera, but if anything interesting pops up, I'll be sure to hop on and show you what I find. Stay tuned. All right, I'm finally done. That was a ton of work. Here are the remnants over here. It doesn't look like that big of a pile, but believe me, that took me the better part of a day. I mean, I took breaks for dinner and to play with my kids a little bit, but yeah, that was a lot of work. But everything went really smoothly, you know, so we have all new caps, all new transistors, all new headers, a bunch of replaced resistors and diodes. I even went and replaced the P1 connector on the power supply board, which is not part of the kit. I did that in addition because mine was basically falling off. Replaced all the fuses. That also was not part of the kit, but I got all of that from Peter from arcadepartsandrepair.com. I found two of the fuses, F11 and F21, were the wrong values, and F21 was blown, so all new fuses in there, so it shouldn't be a problem. And yeah, everything went smoothly. I even wrote my name, like I always do, on the little sticker that Peter includes so that I can remember that I repaired this board back in September of 2003. Yeah, Peter includes that in all of the cap kits and rebuild kits from arcadepartsandrepair.com. Here's what's left over from the kit. So there are a couple things in here. Peter included two of these 2N5884 bottle cap transistors, even though it only takes one. And I know this kit is for both the, if it'll focus, the MA303, the MA430 boards. This is a 430 board. It only has, you know, two bottle cap transistors, that 2N3055 and that single 2N5884. And I looked at pictures of the 303, and that doesn't have three bottle cap transistors, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. I sent an email to Peter from arcadepartsandrepair.com to see if, you know, why there was a second, you know, two of those transistors in there. But apparently his store is closed. I'm not sure what's going on. I hope he's just, you know, taking Labor Day off, something like that. But Peter, if you're watching this, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Another thing that kit had you do was replace a few different headers or a few different connectors. So we replaced A3J2, which is right here, A3J3, which is right here. A3J4 was already replaced. Somebody else had done this before this harness got to me, and it looked fine, so I wasn't going to redo it. I did use my multimeter on continuity test and checked all of my crimps. I ohmed it out back, you know, both ends of the wire on all three of those connectors, the two that I did and the one that a person before me did, and everything checked out. There were a couple on this that were reversed, but both of them were just 5-volt lines. There's a ton of 5-volt lines on the P3J4 connector, so that should be totally okay. And yeah, I think we're ready to test the power supply. One thing I did, I also went through the edge connector housing, and I took a little jeweler's screwdriver and bent back all the pins just so they'll be nice and solidly connecting on the PCB when we finally plug it in. But I think we are ready to yeah, test the voltages that are coming out of this freshly rebuilt power supply. I've got P1 and P2 connected, or really J1 and J2 connected. Those are the input voltages that come from the transformer assembly. So basically, power is coming from the transformer assembly. It's going through this filter board, and this is the filter board that I got off of eBay. I've got a couple of alligator clip wires connecting the grounding straps back to the transformer assembly to tie it to ground. There's a bunch of things that aren't connected. So this part of the harness is the control panel and the utility panel and the coin door and the knocker. So those are all disconnected. This goes to, what does this go to? Oh, this is the the speaker connector. Yeah, A15P1. These are the output voltage connectors. So these headers on the power supply are the output voltages. So P1 and P2 are the inputs, so those are connected because to get the power from the transformer assembly. P3 and P4 are disconnected because we don't have anything to plug them into, so I got those disconnected here. Those will eventually go to you know, the soundboard and the main PCB and the rest of the harness. So yeah, I think we're ready to turn this on. I've got everything else connected the way it was before. Let me go ahead and put this on DC volts, and it is hot out here. It's still about 90 degrees out in the garage. I will plug in the main power. I've got all the power switches off. All right, main power is plugged in. It's my AV cart. I will plug that into the wall. Okay, that's plugged in. So the only thing that should be on right now is the service outlet, which is always on. That's sort of a pinball legacy. And if we turn all these switches on, we're going to be looking for 5 volts DC on the multimeter. Like I said, P4 is really just 5 volts in ground. So I connected my multimeter to one ground and one 5 volt line. We should be able to read it there and then adjust. This is the voltage adjustment pot VR1 that I also replaced as part of the kit on the power supply. And you know, it doesn't have a load connected to it, so it won't be, you know, perfectly accurate, but we'll dial it into just over maybe 5.1 volts, and then we'll test all of the weird voltages on P3. We need plus 20 volts, plus 30 volts, plus 12 volts, plus 5 volts, negative 12 volts. So a bunch of weird voltages there. That's one of the reasons why jam adapters for Gottlieb games are so tricky. So yeah, and I don't know what I'm stalling for. Let me put on the main power and pull this interlock switch and this one here. There we go. We got 4 LED lights lit. We're coming in at 4.7 volts DC, and I'll just use my adjustment tool here, and we'll bring this up to about 5.1. Here we go. Okay. That's great. Yeah, all the lights are on. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that tells us our 5 volts, our negative 12 volts, our plus 12 volts, and our 30 volts are all, there's at least something coming out of there. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So let me turn off the game real quick, and then I'll let that bleed off, and then I will come over to P3 and we'll test the voltages coming off of P3. I'm going to leave the black lead on the ground, one of the ground points of P4, just so I don't have to mess with it. And we'll go one at a time here. Let's see. And it goes, or right to left is the numbering. So this one all the way closest to the camera is actually the first pin, because number 2 is the key, which has been cut. And so we'll test in that order. And it's kind of all jumbled here on the sheet here, but I'll just trace these lines here. One is actually, looks like a, oh no, one is 20 volts. So we will take our red lead and put it on pin 1. And we're still good over there. And we should get 20 volts right here. It's low. Okay, so that's, I'll mark that down as 14 point, call it 4. Interesting. We'll turn that off. And 2 is the key. 3 should give us, let's trace the line here, negative 12. So I'll put it on negative 12, or I'll put it on 3, and we'll expect to see negative 12. And we do. Negative 12.24. That's good. Turning off. And 4 is plus 12. So we'll bump it over to 4. And being careful not to touch these lines together. 12.15. That's great. Turning it off. And 5 is ground, so we'll skip that. 6 is 30. So that's 4, 5, 6 should be 30. 20, it's climbing, okay. Maybe this takes some time to really power up. We'll give it a second here. Still climbing, slowing down. 29. Here, let me give it a second here to see how high it gets. All right, it's taken a couple of minutes, but it looks like it's stabilized around 29.7. It'll go up to about 29.75 and down to 29.7, so we'll call that good. 29.75, 29.75, and going up a little bit more. Oh, look at that, still climbing. What is the last one that we want? Because that was 6. 7, the last one should be 5 volts of DC. We'll give it a second here and see if it gets any higher. Nope, I think that's what we're gonna get. So let's turn this off and let that bleed down a second. And then we'll jump to pin 7 where we expect 5 volts. And then I think this power supply is working great. So we'll disconnect that. And pin 7, powering on. Look at that, 5.099. I am very, very happy with this. What this means is our rebuild worked. The power supply is working. We are getting all the voltages we're expecting. I mean, with no load, granted. But yeah, so I'm excited for the next step. So what I really want to do is get qbert playing on a monitor. So I'm going to grab my monitor. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to put it on the AV cart right here, and we will hook it up to the monitor power, which is hiding back here. And for now, I'm just going to hook up my my TPG just to see if this monitor is working and if we can get an image on the screen. So I'll be right back. Okay, before we can hook up the main PCB and see if we can get the game to boot, we've got to make sure our monitor works. So this is the monitor that actually came in the, I think the crummier cabinet, and it has some, really decent qbert burn on it. And yeah, but we're going to use this for qbert. That's such distinctive burn. You could really never use this monitor, this tube, in anything but a qbert. But hey, as long as we're using the tube in the same game that has the same game as what the burn is on the monitor, then it should be fine. So I've got my TPG hooked up. I've got the power connected. I've got an alligator clip to ground the monitor to the transformer assembly. Let's turn on the TPG. I've done nothing to this monitor. And let's turn it on and hopefully we see the TPG image. I'll go and turn off the house lights. No smoke or fire yet. I think I heard the HV. And let's see what we get. Look at that. I'll turn off even my workbench light. We have the TPG logo on the screen. I think I could adjust the focus a tiny bit actually. Let me turn on the house lights for that and grab my adjustment tool. But holy smokes, that is lucky. Like I said, I've done nothing to this monitor. I probably should test and adjust to B+. We are a little, let's see, focus is right here. All right, there, it looks pretty good. Yeah, and maybe I'll recap this. Let me try it again. Maybe I'll recap this thing. I don't know, but hey, if it works out of the box, who am I to complain? There, and I adjusted the camera shutter speed, and yeah, that image is nice and locked in. Maybe the focus is drifting. It's a little interesting. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, maybe he needs a new flyback, but wow. Got lucky with that one. So what I'm going to do, I'll turn off the, actually, let's take a look at the colors. That looks good. Yeah, nice colors. Awesome. And yeah, this is even has a Gottlieb GV103A, but to indicate that this came from a qbert, as if we couldn't tell by the burn. So turning everything off. Let's try to go for broke here. I'm going to grab my PCB. I'll get it hooked up. We'll come back. We'll test it out, and hopefully we get a game to boot on this monitor. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. So here is my qbert main PCB. I've actually got two of these that I've collected. This one is allegedly working. I actually got it from Dell, from Delusional's Arcade. He had bought it working off of a fellow CLOV member because he had grabbed a qbert cabinet, was planning a restoration project, but turns out that that cabinet was way too far gone, couldn't be salvaged, so he ended up selling this board to me for exactly what he paid for it. So thank you, Dell. It does have some acid damage. Looks like it's been repaired. The sockets that were affected have been replaced. It has a coin cell battery mod on it. Basically, what these boards did was they leaked, the batteries leaked, and then the acid ran into, or the alkaline ran into all the leads and caused chaos. So looks like this has been repaired. So what I did, I actually, even though it's allegedly working, I went and I used a scratch pen to clean off all of the fingers on the edge connector, and then wiped a little bit of deoxit on it. I put a battery, a CR2032 lithium battery into the slot there, and then I pressed down on all of the socketed chips. Quite a few felt like they moved a little bit, so I'm glad that I did that. So yeah, I think we're ready to go. And remember, I said that I was missing the video cable, so I fashioned a new one just sort of based on what the schematics say. I think it's right, I hope it's right, running from the filter PCB to the monitor. So I think all I need to do is plug in the power here. And I'm going to turn off the house lights. Actually, I should probably figure out how to test the 5 volts just to make sure it's not too high or too low. Okay, I think we're ready now. I disconnected P3 or J3 from P3 on the power supply board. That's the connector that sends out all of the weird voltages that go to the knocker and the soundboard and whatever. So it's not needed to power the main PCB, and I've got my multimeter connected to the 5 volts in ground on that, so we'll be able to read the 5 volts from there. So, yeah, we're not going to have any sound, we don't have any controls, but we're hoping to see qbert boot on the monitor. So all I need to do is pull the power, or the the interlock switch to power it up. 3, 2, 1. 5.049, so that's good. And let's see if we get anything on that monitor. I'm going to go turn off the house lights. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness, we're in test mode. We're in test mode. We got a bit of a wave in the monitor. I don't know if that's, there's like a left to right wave there, like a, maybe because there's something, interfering with the junky wires that I used. But the game is booting. I don't have any kind of controls hooked up to it. But hey, the game is booting. We've got qbert running on that monitor. Okay, I wonder how I can get out of test mode. I wonder if there's some kind of dip switch setting, something like that. Let me look that up and see what I can figure out. But this is progress. All right, it turns out that the test switch in qbert is wired to be normally closed, right? So if you don't have the utility test panel, whatever, connected, it's going to always boot into test mode. So looking at the schematics, I think I need to jumper on A8, P10, Pin number 8 to pin number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on. Okay, I'm glad I double checked that. A8, P10, pin 8 needs to be jumped to A8, P10, 3, and I had it on 9. So this should hopefully work. So let's see. 3, 2, 1. So far, so good. Let's see what we get on that screen. Oh my goodness. Whenever this kind of stuff happens, I always think like Christmas Vacation. Oh my gosh. You know, look at that. Would you look at that? Oh, awesome. Awesome. That is qbert attract mode. Oh, incredible. Incredible. We have a working qbert PCB. You know, like I said, we've got a little bit of a wave going left to right, like a 60 hertz wave. I don't know if it's showing. Yeah, it's kind of showing up on camera. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that, I mean, that could be something with the monitor. It could be vertical hold. It could be, you know, the fact that I'm using, you know, junk wires for that sort of temporary video cable, but gosh. Okay, I'm tempted to to do something here. Let me go grab something else. Let's hook up let's hook up a soundboard and a speaker and see if we can get audio out of this puppy. So right here I have a untested qbert soundboard, including it's got the speech chip, and I'll grab a speaker and we'll wire that up and see if we can get sound out of this bad boy. Okay, I've got a speaker hooked up. I've got the sound and speech board hooked up. I got a great deal on this from Tony up in Canada. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. I got a bunch of stuff from Tony. I got another main PCB, but that one has a lot more acid damage and it hasn't been touched yet, so I'll probably get to that at some point. I got a qbert joystick from Tony. I got this soundboard from Tony, and it's got the super rare SC01A speech chip on it. I got some other stuff from Tony too that we'll talk about some other time. But I think we're ready to go. You know, the soundboard looks okay. The only thing I noticed is that it has this large heat sink, which has sort of come loose because there's cold solder on the bottom for it. But that shouldn't be a big deal. We're not going to be running this for a long time. I did clean the edge connector on the soundboard, you know, the same way I cleaned it on the main PCB with a scratch pen and a little bit of deoxit, and I also bent back the pins inside the edge connector housing with a jeweler's screwdriver. It's got this sort of weird single-sided edge connector. It's not two-sided. So I think we're ready. So hopefully we hear qbert say something to us when we turn this on. So keep your fingers crossed. 3, 2, 1. Nothing? Nothing. Nothing. Is this a test? Hitting the test button. It could be that there's no volume pot connected. Well, that's a little disappointing. Let me double check something real quick and come right back. Okay, I've got some more hackery. Looked at the schematics, and yeah, the audio output needs to go through the sort of utility panel that's got the sound, you know, volume adjustment knob, potentiometer. I didn't have the right potentiometer to just sort of, hack in with alligator clip wires. I also didn't have the right resistors, because like you can replace a potentiometer with a couple of resistors, because a potentiometer is really just a variable resistor. That's why it's often abbreviated as VR. So what I did was I wired it directly with jumper wires. So there's no resistor or potentiometer or variable resistor in the way. So this should be max volume. Potentially will blow the speaker. I don't know. But it's a risk I'm willing to take. I don't think there's any way I can damage anything else other than potentially the speaker, which is, what, a couple bucks. So, am I rolling? Yeah, I'm rolling. It's midnight. I'm tired. I've been doing this all day. 3, 2, 1. Standing away from it. Nope. No sound at all. I don't know what to make of that. I think my connections are good. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to try at this point. I'm assuming the soundboard is working. I'm hitting the sound reset or test switch on it to no avail. I'm assuming. Let me actually look up what the the dip switch settings on the sound PCB do real quick. Okay, I don't think there's really anything else to do at this point. I think my hacking skills have come to an end here. I looked at some more stuff in the schematic and online. I don't think there's anything else I can do at this point. Let me just turn it back on. Yeah, I don't know if it's a soundboard issue or a speaker issue or a wiring issue. I'm hoping it's a wiring issue because, like I said, I don't have anything really hooked up just yet. But yeah, I don't think I'm getting any kind of sound whatsoever, which is fine. We'll figure out what's going on and get it working soon enough. But yeah, I feel like I'm ending on a down note, but not at all, right? Like, think about how far we've come in this episode. In the beginning, we had nothing. We had these two busted cabinets with nothing, right? And now, guys, we've got qbert running in attract mode on a monitor. We've still got plenty of work to do. We got to figure out what this wave is going on the screen. We got to figure out the sound. Obviously, we've got some cabinet work to do. We've got to pull all the parts from the bad cabinet, put them in the good one. We've got to figure out all the artwork, strip off the black paint. Hopefully the yellow is still in good shape. We've got to buy and apply side art. We've got to put a control panel back together. We've got to figure out a utility panel and all kinds of stuff. But guys, we have qbert running on a monitor. Isn't that awesome? I think it's awesome. I hope you think it's awesome. Man, I feel like this is a video where I've made in this episode, I think I've made more progress than I've ever made in a single video, right? What did we do? We got the transformer assembly, squared away. We rebuilt the power supply, completely rebuilt the power supply PCB. We made sure the harness was in good shape. We tested everything out. We tested out this game board, tested out the monitor. The filter board is working. Still question marks on the soundboard, question marks on the speaker, question marks on the wiring for all of that. But guys, we've got qbert running on a monitor. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, why don't we head back downstairs into the basement and we'll wrap up the video there. Well, that'll do it for part 2 of our qbert restoration series, and I'm really excited about the progress that we're making. Things are moving really quickly. qbert's a game that I thoroughly enjoy, and it's one that I've wanted for a long time, and I'm very much looking forward to getting this project done and adding that game to the lineup down here in the Basement Arcade. And yeah, I think, if it's up to me, this is one that I'm definitely going to prioritize, so something to look forward to. If this is your first time, welcome to Overtime Arcade. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. I release new videos like this basically every Sunday afternoon. If you liked the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps me out and helps YouTube know to share content like this, recommend content like this to viewers like you. And if you really, really like this video, hit that join button down below to learn more about what it means to become an Overtime Arcade channel member. For a couple bucks a month, you get access to some really cool exclusive perks like a monthly members-only live stream, a private members-only Discord server where we've been having a lot of fun hanging out, talking about all kinds of stuff. And yeah, big shout out to our two newest Overtime Arcade channel members, Random Pixelated Billy Bob and the Dilla Swede. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up here. I'm Charlie. Thanks for watching Overtime Arcade, and we'll see you next time.
Overtime!